This is Jeff from Scalable Network Solutions. I'm going to take you through today about how you'd migrate a VM from a demo vSphere environment into AWS. I'm not going to go through every single detail about what you might need. There's a URL at the end to tell you where you can get the documentation if you actually want to go through and go into the specifics. But what I'll go through today is really the sort of the demonstration of actually how you would actually do this. And go through then eventually to the end of migration and show that it all worked. Of course, this could be it's Windows 2008, could be 2003 or 2012. So first we'll look at some of the prerequisites in terms of the account setups and also the permissions and various other things that you need to apply. So let's have a look first at the AWS side of it, the IAM account that you will need. The purpose of this IAM account will be to actually do all the tasks that are required actually on the AWS side of things, and so will be used during this used by the connector. So what do we need to do? Well, first thing we need to go into your IAM and in your AWS console and create an IAM account. So for this one, it's just give it any name you like. I've used VC Access IAM, but whatever you need. And we need to keep the keys for this. It's very important because they're actually used by the connector. As you might imagine, it's an API call. So we'll just save that away for later, and that'll be used during the vSphere side of things. Now we do need to apply some permissions to this. So we go into the policy section for the account, and luckily there's already a pre-configured policy waiting for us from AWS, which is the AWS connector configuration. So that's straightforward. And that's basically it for that particular account that we need for this setup. Next thing we're going to need is going to be an account on vCenter to do the virtual center side of things in the migration. Now, in my particular case, I've got a demo environment and I've got the appliance. So for this, I'll need to create a new account, and this being a Unix box, we'll do via the shell. Now, this is straightforward to all the Unix people out there. So we just jump onto party and usual credentials, the IP addresses and the credentials to get in. Now, of course, I'm using the root account because it's a demo environment, but you're probably using something else if you're doing this in production. Well, you probably have this the accounts in LDAP or something else, but this is just a demo environment, so we're just adding it as a local account on the vCenter appliance at the moment. So from Unix side, it's just straight the user add and an account name, which I'm going to call VC Access SA service account, and put some password onto it. And that's basically it for this side of it, because the connector will require will apply the requisite permissions to this, so we don't need to do anything else other than set the account up to start with. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is from the AWS side of it is to actually set up a trust relationship. This is used from the website, but not directly from the console. You won't see this on the console itself. There's a specific URL you need to go to actually establish this trust, and this will generate the configuration files that you'll need when you install the AWS connector on the virtual center side of things. So from the URL, which is also on the end, and also the documentation, you'll see this management portal for vCenter setup. So we just hit into the get started. Now there's a couple of different options where this can be federated, but we're going to take something straightforward for the moment. And first thing off is you'll want the IAM account, which we just previously established. So that's all ready to go. Next thing is I want to know basically from the vCenter side of things who's going to be administrating. Now I'm still using root for the moment, which again you probably won't be in normally in any secure environment. It then asks to create a key pair for establishing the trust relationship. Again, you can just give this any particular key name you like. I've just called it VC access key. So basically it just gives you some basic information and then allows you to download the config file. And we just need to put that aside for the moment because we'll be using that during, again, with the AWS connector on Virtual Center. So when that's done, it'll just give you a quick sort of breakdown what's actually set up in the trust relationship. You can go back and reset that at any particular point with that reset the trust at the end, but this is basically what we need for that first part. Okay, the next part is to actually pull down the AWS connector from Amazon and install it onto vSphere. It's an OVF template, so it installs pretty easily. There's not really much to it. And there's, again, from the documentation from Amazon, you'll find the link to where to pull that down. So I've actually just downloaded it and put it onto just a local drive just for the moment. So to deploy this, it's as you would do with any deployment of an OVF. So as you see, I've already got it downloaded into a local file, so just pick it up and do the install. Usual information. And where it's going to go. Again, put this wherever you feel appropriate. In terms of disks, being a sort of a demo environment, I'm just using thin provisioning. You might not want to do that, but that's up to you. And waiting. And there it goes. And again, there's a few more selections, but really this is just a standard OVF deployment, so it's really just take the options which are more suitable to your environment. And then it should be ready. Now I'm using the vCenter web client here for the moment. Now you'll see when we actually get to the deployment, we'll be using the standard application for vCenter, because unfortunately the plugin that this connector creates doesn't work with the web client and only seems to work with the standard desktop application. Anyway, you'll see now that we have an AWS connector ready to go, and so we can start that up now. Okay, getting to it. There we go. So we can power that on now. So demo environment, everything takes a little bit longer as usual. Now, once it's powered up, we want to take a note of the IP address because the configuration of the connector is done via a web portal. So grabbing that IP address, we'll just jump onto its web page config. Get in there, and of course I don't trust certificate at this particular point, so that's fine, but we'll go ahead and trust it anyway, just for the hell of it. And first thing it'll need to know, of course, is where the vCenter server is, and credentials to get onto it. Because basically this is going to put the config and also install the plugin as well. It does have a password associated with it. There's no account for this particular console, but it does, the first time you set this up, require a password to be set up, and then any time you go back onto the this particular web console that you'll need that password, you can reset it. It's usual things. The first thing it does is jump in and says, okay, let's get started with configuring the connector. Now, as it is, we've got a file ready to go. That's the one that we created with the AWS portal before. So the AMP, the Amazon Management Platform, so we'll portal, sorry, not platform, and so we'll select that and give it the service account that we actually set up previously via the shell. So these are all the things that we set up prerequisites, so we should be all ready to go now. And this is the AWS credentials. Now this is the IAM account that we set up. Remember, we downloaded the keys that it's set up, and that's actually what it's asking for here. So I've got that in Excel ready to go. So I'll just pull it up. The access key and secret key. And it has a bit of a think about it for a while. And eventually, see now the confirmation screen, and also that it expects you to put SSL certificates on this one as well. But you can just say for the moment, yeah, sure, whatever. And we'll move on to next stage, and that basically is that's all the configuration it needs, and it should then, in a second, when it's finishing confirming and all the rest of its post setup, it'll show you the status of each of the services on the connector. So we'll just give it a little bit more time as it thinks about it. And a little bit more time. It'll get there. And there we go. So it's now already ready to go from the vCenter side of things. There is one remaining task, and that's to define an environment so that the connector knows where to put the migrated machines. So we go into the plugin in vCenter, the AWS connector plugin, and you'll see you've got your region already there. Now there will be an environment, a default one, which won't be of any use to you, so we need to create an environment, which is basically just a straightforward process. Create an environment. Now it should populate with your VPC and your subnets, so you'll need to submit one or both of those subnets where you want to put in, but I'm just selecting one. So I'll just put it into that one particular availability zone and give it a name. And that's essentially it. So you'll now have an environment set up from the AWS side that knows where to actually put the migrated machines, and you'll see the various tabs there. For this migration, we might just quickly show that the server which we're actually going to be migrating, it's a standard Windows 2008. It's not even R2. It's probably something you might have in your environment which you might want to move up and get it off your current environment for whatever reason. So we'll just quickly jump onto it just in its current running state and just quickly have a look, and also make sure that what we had running now will also be running when we're finished. Now it's running IIS at the moment, just a stock standard install of IIS, nothing, just with a default page. So it's purely for the demo. So we'll just quickly show that it's IIS is actually running at this point in time, using trusty old IE, and I do mean old IE on this particular one. So yep, there's our default page, and just to make sure that there's no shenanigans, I'm going to put a small text file on here just to say it's me, so that we know that this is a server and there's been no smoke and mirrors in the background to just to simulate this. Of course, it's unnecessary, but well, it's all part of the demo. Now that I've verified this, we can shut it down and start the migration. I will mention the only actual change on this server is I've removed VMware tools, which is one of the requirements. You need the HTTP on the network interface, which that was already the case, and .NET 3.5 installed, which was already the case as well. So the next part is we'll go back to our vSphere client, and you'll see now that we have an option to migrate to EC2 for this machine. This will bring actually a small web page. And don't worry about the big red markings to start with. We just need to tell it which region to start with. And then it should find out that environment which we created previously and populate it with the standard sort of defaults. Now you'll notice at the bottom of the security group just has the IDs of the various security groups, doesn't actually tell you what they are. So unless you know them off by heart, you can probably just pick any one of them because you can always go back and change that later. It's not a huge deal. Once that starts, it'll take a little bit of a while to actually get the job ready. So you just have to sit there and wait. Or in IT, we're used to waiting. And eventually, after a little bit of time, it'll produce the fact that it's got a job ready. Very, very uninteresting page, just with the job and nothing else other than that. So you can just get rid of that. And you'll notice at the bottom now of the vSphere client that is creating an OVF. That's what will actually be uploaded to AWS. Now, as you can see, it's actually completed. Of course, I've skipped ahead a little bit. It does take time to do these things. Now, we'll have to, for the rest of it, we'll have to move to another part of the screen, which is we look at the environment, and you'll notice these tabs for the different statuses and the migration status. So, as you can see now, it's actually started the upload. Now, this will take time, and of course, it will depend on how big your volumes are. So, I've skipped ahead again, and to see that after it's finished the upload, it's now converting the volume. Now this will take a long time. After it finishes converting volume, it then goes into a state where it just says progress, and you find that sometimes it'll just sit there at the 50% mark or thereabouts and just take forever. Now eventually it will finish, so really have cut out maybe half an hour to an hour here, and then we can now have a look at what's happening on what's been uploaded, I should say, on AWS, and make sure everything is actually working. Because at this point, basically everything it's actually been moved now, and it's been ready to start up at the other end. Right, now if we jump onto AWS console, we should now find our server ready to go. Except of course it doesn't have a public DNS or a public IP. It's just got the private. So what we'll need to do is associate an elastic IP. So I've already created the public IP address, and we just need to associate that with the instance we've just migrated. So let's go back to the instance, and all being good, yep, we now have a public DNS and a public IP. So now actually ready to start this up and have a look and see how it's gone. Now this will take a while. Of course, the running state should come up fairly quick. Now I should mention that remember before we talked about the security groups, you might want to go back and fix that up, because it just gave you a choice of one before and you may not even know which particular one it was, and so you can go back and just correct that now. I've already got it set up for DNS and also for web, so we should be able to get it from the internet. So this should take a little while. And as usual, everything takes longer than you'd hope. And there we go. At least we've now got through to uh, the running state, and it's now just doing the initialization. And this will take a little while, so we might just skip forward. So once the initialization's finished and the status checks are done, so we're ready to actually jump on it and actually connect to the box. So I've already got the IP address from this, and I've actually just loading up on IP, so I actually want to create this with a smaller window than it would normally would. Otherwise, it's just too big for a screen for this capture. So things that we didn't have keys or anything else, this is still the same authentication that we had previously. So we just RDP to the box and using the same credentials we had before, and there we are. And we have the now the background that AWS has put in place. Let's get rid of our server manager screen. And you'll see that with those stats, it also shows the public and the private IP address of the server. And we'll find that yes, they files there. It's definitely me. And we can go and have a look from the web as well and make sure that we can see IS running. That's how we already have the IP address, but there it is again. Just copy that. And there's the server. So all seems to have gone well. In fact, actually, this process probably actually took about 3 attempts because, as you know, these things never work out properly. There's issues with uploadings, and then sometimes there's other issues. So it all looked convenient there, but you'll find that you may have to do this several times for whatever reason. So I always take that into account, especially with the amount of disk that might have to go up. I only had about 4 gig, but on other servers that could be a lot more. So allow plenty of time for these things. I'll eventually be doing some more videos along these lines, uploading into AWS using the command line. Rather, that's for if you have not using vSphere or just workstation or VHT file from Hyper-V. They're the URLs that I talked about previously that you can go. The main one is the install option connector information, and that basically all gives you all the details that we've actually gone through and more specifics, and also the links. And the other link is to the AWS Trust setup, which again you won't find directly on the console, so you need that link, but you'll find that also in the documentation. Well, thanks for listening to this today. Hopefully this has given you a bit of an idea about how you would actually move some of these servers up into the cloud. And then, of course, I haven't covered all the licensing and all the other things. That's something you might want to look at in your own time and just to see what you need. So I'll just wrap up there and say thanks, and hopefully we'll see some more videos coming soon from my company, Scalable Network Solutions. There's another fellow, Graham, who might be doing some Microsoft ones as well. So thanks again, and talk to you later.